to In the Air on Crick Tracker with me, Nivedna Prabhu. I hope all of you are geared up to see what's really going to pan out in the second ODI between West Indies and India. The first one, of course, India went on to clinch. Lekin second one में क्या West Indies की strategy रहेगा? What are they going to do differently? Probably we will find out all of that from our cricket guests. But before we dive into that, let's take a look at where the action is happening. It's going to be starting at 7 p.m. IST. If you could take a look at that on our screens. It's going to be happening at Queen's Park, at Oval, of course, in Port of Spain, in Trinidad. And like I said, 7 p.m. IST. तो action हमारे काफी नजदीक है. Talking about यहाँ पे क्या pan out हो सकता है for Nicholas Pooran and the boys to be changing probably a little bit of strategy going into the second ODI. हम अपने cricket guest से पूछते हैं, and जैसे कि we also like changing things around in terms of on our show. We definitely have Pratik Tiwari joining us, but we also have another guest, Pratik Bhatt, joining us as well. So welcome to the both of you. Pratik, let me start off with you. Of course, Team India did have a great win in the first one. Some amazing individual performances as well. But in terms of West Indies, what do you think they'd be looking to do differently today?
I think for West Indies, it's just simple. They have lost 4 games on drought. They'll be raring to, get one win, first of all, and then, go into the decider with a win, of course. And yeah, they would just want to come back in the series and make a statement. Yeah.
All right, talking about making a statement, I'll come to you, Pratik. काफी लोगों ने उम्दा परफॉर्मेंस किया फर्स्ट ओडीआई में. अगर कैप्टन शिखर धवन के बारे में बात करें, he did say that he was a little disappointed. He fell short of 3 runs to get that well-deserved century. But we always talk about the top order not doing well. But in this first ODI, it looked completely different. So let's start off on that positive note. That worked in India's favor. Lekin for West Indies, what do you think they really have to change this time around?
Well, Pooran said that that was a game which kind of felt like a win, and you will have to say that. I mean, for a side that has lost 7-8 games and then coming after a 3-0 loss against Bangladesh, if you come within one strike of winning the game, which is what West Indies managed to do, because just 3 runs, so it's like a touch and go. I mean, one boundary and it could have been West Indies' game. So I think that it will, of course, feel them that they actually ended up winning the game, but the scoreline will tell you that it's still 1-0 in India's favor. So they have to still come back. It's one of those sides, West Indies, we have seen they have been plagued by inconsistencies since long. It's not that they do not have the players, but one thing that they have not quite been able to manage is that they have not been clicking in unison, which is very important in something like a team sport like cricket. And I think that is exactly what we saw India doing in the previous game, because not only just managing to hold their nerves in the end, because that game could have gone anywhere. But I think with the bat, with the ball, India was pretty spot on, but you still will feel that at least West Indies would be happier side, given the fact that they came off a very, very, morale defeating and morale crushing losses against Bangladesh. They have been constantly emphasizing on the fact that they want to bat 50 overs. So that is a positive as well, that they at least batted 50 overs of their entire quota. And they came close. They fought well, because at one stage you could have thought that perhaps India would manage something, close to 350 maybe, but then they stretched things back, pulled them back and restricted them to somewhere around 310 or so. So I think there were certain positives, but I think that they will have to make a quick turnaround, because series is on the line. You lose this one, and the next one kind of becomes an inconsequential clash because the series goes 2-0. So I think it's important for them to kind of buckle up and show their best game in this one.
All right, talking about everybody who's joined us in, and all of you are saying hi from the entire team of Crick Tracker. But the fact that we've spoken about the first ODI, tell me what your predictions for the second ODI is. Comment section में मुझे बताइए, क्या इंडिया फिर से जीतेगा या वेस्ट इंडीज कमबैक कर पाएगी इस मैच में. अभी बात करते हैं हेड टू हेड के बारे में. In the ODI format, what is it looking like in terms of stats? They played 137 times, जहाँ पे India have a slight upper hand of having 168, West Indies have 163. 4 have resulted in a no result and 2 have been tied. Now let's also talk about the approaching milestones in this particular match. Of course, ultimately we'll get to the whole playing 11 aspect in some time, but let's take a look at what are the approaching milestones. और पूछते हैं हमारे cricket guest प्रतीक से कि इन सारे approaching milestones में which is the most doable according to you, Pratik?
Well, a lot of them are doable. I think Shikhar Dhawan, his USP is timing the ball, getting a lot of boundaries, and definitely Shikhar Dhawan's milestone is definitely on cards. Goes without saying, and I think Shea Hope is likely to start again, and that is also very much possible. It's just given. Yeah, I think these two are very likely to happen. And as far as Shreyas Iyer's milestone goes, I think uh, after what he did in the first game, I think yeah, you one would say that it is very likely for this to happen. He needs it because of all the criticism that he received in England due to short balls and all of that. So yeah, he
Yeah.
needs to get going again in this match as well.
All right, those were about the approaching milestones. Now most of them look doable, like Pratik said. But dusri taraf, one interesting aspect is to look forward to players from both the teams who might be dangerous for their opponents. So who are they from both the teams? Let's find out. Player to watch out for from West Indies would definitely be Hope. I think I'll come to you, Pratik, on that. In the 99 matches that he's played, his stats of course speak for itself. 4,778 runs, sorry, and his highest being 170. And from Team India, a player to watch out for would definitely be Prasidh Krishna. He in the 11 matches he's picked up 20 wickets. And I believe his best has been 4 for 12. So I'll come to you, Pratyay. In terms of ODIs, these two names, what is your takeaway? Are these the names that you're going with, or do you have different names to look forward to in terms of a player to watch out for?
Well, definitely. I think if you talk about someone like a Shea Hope, he's one of the better batters. If you talk about the West Indies lineup, very accomplished, someone who's technically very solid as well. Comes out to bat in the opening slot, so you can expect him to, get going as well. And I think the fact that he missed out in the previous game did not get going, so I think he would also want to make amends. And like I said, it becomes important that because if you're wanting to win games, it is important that you give those kind of contributions to your team. In the recent past, in the last 2 3 years, whenever you will see, if you're talking about ODI cricket in specific, which hasn't been one of those formats that these teams are playing a lot. T20I cricket is still something which West Indies is. You can say it's one of those formats that they like playing. It's their stronger suit. But you cannot forget that we are all very increasingly focused about what we are going to have in November, December, October, November rather, the T20 World Cup. But there's another World Cup which is coming, 2023, the ODI World Cup. So with that in mind, you would want that these series are all great opportunities for these players to kind of get in touch, because there's another there's a school of thought that ODI cricket is perhaps losing its relevance, and whether it's a format that is going to stay alive or not. So these are those games that you would rather want to utilize, and I think that's what a chance for Shea Hope is. I think Prasidh Krishna as well. You talked about. I think yes, one of those bowlers that perhaps India is looking as a future prospect, because now he is kind of coming into his own. He has been a part of. He has slightly kind of gotten into the experience. Has been with the team. We have seen him in the IPL, and he is someone who knows his game well. He brings in a certain different sort of a repertoire, different sort of a skill as well, because he's tall, can kind of bend his back, has got the pace, and he can ruffle the batters up. So I think that he is another interesting prospect. And at the moment, what's more interesting to watch is the fact that despite this team not having so many first choice players, I mean, there's no Virat Kohli, there's no Rohit Sharma, there's no Bumrah, no Pant, so many players missing. Bhuvneshwar, Shami, you can just, the list is endless. But still, this team actually, if you look, you will feel that it has enough depth, enough potential to kind of challenge any opposition. I think that is a very happy place to be at as an Indian fan, that you have this kind of players despite so many first choice players missing. So I think this becomes a great opportunity for all the players, keeping in mind, as I said, the World Cup.
Right, we'll have so much to be talking about if we do have the time, in terms of everybody talking about how the ODI format is slowly dying. Whoever thought that we would come to, such an era when people would be talking about that? If we do have the time, we'll get chatting about about this with our cricket guests. But dusri taraf, the update about the toss being that West Indies have won the toss and opted to bat. Nicholas Pooran has said, I'm going to bat first. It's the same wicket. Anything over 250 will be challenging here. We need to build partnerships. We need to show up again and do the same thing again. One force change. Moti is out. Hayden Walsh is in. So, what is the playing 11 for both the teams? We'll come to that in a bit. But I'll come to you, Pratyay, first. Smart move having gone into bat first for West Indies.
You have to say, because if it's the same pitch that they are playing, because the last game you had all 100 overs of game, so you will expect that the pitch will slow down a little bit, because even in the previous game we saw that once until the ball was new, until around say the 35th over, it was still fine. But in the Indian innings as well, we saw that after the 35th over, it started to misbehave a little bit, and the batters were not being able to time the ball as properly. Same happened even with the case of West Indies, I think. So you would rather want to utilize the best conditions, and want to put a target on the board. And the fact that also India ended up actually defending the target, that could also have prompted him to try to put up a board total on the board and then try to defend it. Speaking of the change, I think if it's a forced change, I don't think that West Indies would have wanted to make any change as such. But if it's a forced change, then it's a different story. But still, Hayden Walsh again is an exciting prospect, googly bowler, leg break. So he is someone who can actually come into play in this particular track, because with the same track being here, we have seen a little bit of assistance for the spinners as well in the previous game. So I think that yes, it kind of bodes well as a decision.
All right, Pratik, I was asking you about the toss, but I'll ask you another question instead, in terms of a question that's coming for Vignesh. He says, after Dhawan's dismissal in the last game, India only got 95 for 5 in 16.2 overs. Thoughts on how they accelerated with that sort of talent in the middle? So, what is your takeaway?
That's what I said. I mean, after the 35th over mark, because as I said, at one point,
Pratik, I'm sorry for cutting short. The question was directed towards Pratik. I think the fee factor, the fee factor is a little confusing here. You, Pratik, what do you
Yeah.
have to say about this question?
Yeah, I think it simply means that the team is young. India is here to test the bench strength. That being one of the reasons that some of the senior players have interested here. Yeah, India got the opportunity to look at the bench strength. Yeah, these are still learning as well. It's still young careers for most of them. So yeah, it's too early to judge their temperament or capacity to handle pressure after the top order have lost their wickets. But yeah, I mean, only time will tell. But then again, I think players like Surya Kumar Yadav, Sanju Samson, Deepak Huda, all these players have shown what they can do in the previous two series also over the last month. So yeah, I think it's only a matter of time before they come together and perform for the team.
All right. So you all tell me in the comment section, what did you think of India's performance in the first ODI? And if you had to pick a player who would kind of come back and do the damage today, who would that be? Would it still be Captain Gabbar, or are you going with any other names? Tell me that in the comments. Before we come to the playing 11 and get Pratay and Pratik's viewpoint about the same, let's take a look at what people are tweeting on social tracker and find out ki kya chal raha hai about the second ODI in terms of West Indies versus India. If you could take a quick look at that on our screens. Breaking Avesh Khan to make his ODI debut for Team India today. Okay, a great opportunity for yet another youngster. We'll get talking about that in a bit. If you take a look at another social tracker. Pitch for the second ODI between India and West Indies is what Crick Crazy Johns has tweeted. Amit Mishra has said Gabbar is back, missed out on a century, but led India to driver's seat in this match. He's, of course, referring to the first one. All right. So a quick word on, Dhawan's game. Pratik, I'll come to you on that. What did you think? Because you also said, he has a knack of timing the ball quite effortlessly. Do you think we can see him back in action? The reason why I ask you this is because he did put out that statement saying he doesn't let criticism get to him. We see how that kind of pans out for, seasoned players after a point if the bat does not do the talking. So what's your take on that? He has definitely not let the captaincy get to him.
Yeah. It's interesting that you say, will he get back in action? Because if you look at one day cricket, since 2013, he has never averaged below 35 in a calendar year. And this year, he is averaging above 45. I think the criticism that he has received is mostly because of his performances in the other two formats. And in one day, I think he has been one of the most consistent players for India. And it's unfortunate that he has been dropped in between, and the next crop of players like KL Rahul or other youngsters came in, and he lost his place, and such things have happened. But then again, I think Shikhar Dhawan has been one of the most consistent players in the format since 2013, and yeah, once again, he has averaged below 40 since 2013, only in two calendar years, which is, I mean, these are staggering numbers. And yeah, I think answering your question, yes, he should perform in this game as well. He should do just as well as he has done in the first game and in the previous years.
All right. So we want to see more of Gabbar action, right? But another player that I think everybody's super happy for him getting this opportunity as well is Avesh Khan. I definitely know Pratyek. Professor Pratyek has a lot to talk about Avesh as well. Pratyek, before we get to the playing 11, a quick word on Avesh making his debut in ODI today. Fantastic opportunity for yet another youngster. We've spoken about it several times, even right now on today's show, as to how many names we have in the Indian cricket team right now. Talking about Avish making his debut in the ODI format, what can we expect from him?
Well, definitely. As I said, that the talent pool that India has is so phenomenal. I mean, you are not missing the players. I mean, despite so many first choice players missing out, you still do not feel that there's any dearth of match winners for you. And Avesh again being one of those bowlers, we have seen him performing at the IPL. He has already played a few games for India at the international level. Now getting a chance to make his ODI debut, so that also is a great moment for him. And he's
Yeah.
again one of those bowlers who can actually bowl with the new ball, can continue, can tackle things at the death. In the ODI format, it will become all the more interesting to see whether he can, operate perhaps in the middle phase, because in T20Is, whatever we have seen of him, and even in the IPL for that matter, because 20 over cricket does not give you that extended a spell to test people, because you're still bowling only roughly 24 balls in the game, 4 overs. That does not allow you to be tested as much. But when it comes to ODIs, you're bowling, you're potentially having a chance to bowl 10 overs. That gives you a lot more ability. That gives you a lot more chance to perform. And I think he is again one of those bowlers. He is a wicket taker. At times he has been expensive, but I think that he is one of those players who actually is kind of making his way into every format. He's young,
Yeah.
he's quick, and I think that if he can actually perform in these games, you might as well see him in the World Cup 11 as well. I mean, that is what every team is at the moment concerned about. So I think this is another great opportunity for him. And we've seen plenty of players coming up the ranks in the recent past. I mean, the last 2 3 series, plenty of debuts that India has managed to hand out, and every single player of them has actually managed to perform. So it also becomes important for them to make sure, because every single spot there's at least one or two players who are fighting for it. So you have to make sure that if right now, if you do not have the first choice players, this actually becomes the best chance to kind of show yourself what you have got, and then again increase a little bit more headache of the management and the coaches and the support staff.
All right. So is it a problem of plenty? Is that a headache? All of you tell me in the comment section. I'll come to you, Prateek. This question from Dhanraj, since we're talking about World Cup, we're talking about combination and all the talent. He wants to know what is the perfect bowling squad for India in white ball cricket for the next World Cup. So what's your take?
If it's talking about the ODI World Cup, I think it's too early to tell. But yeah, I think India will be keeping the ODI World Cup in mind already. That's for sure. With about 1.5 years to go, and yeah, I think the senior bowlers like Mohammad Shami, Jasprit Bumrah will definitely make the cut. And I think rest of the sports, I think they are still there for taking. And one might say Yuzvendra Chahal is also a certain starter, but then again, with all the chopping and changing that he has gone through, you never know what's going to happen with the Indian team. But then again, I would say the spinner would be Yuzvendra Chahal, one of the specialist spinners. Shami and Bumrah would be given, I would say. And yeah, the place for other two bowlers, the fourth and fifth bowlers, I think it's still there for taking for the youngsters.
All right. And if we were to talk about the T20 World Cup, what would your combinations be? Considering he wants to know about the World Cup. So what is your take on that?
Yeah, once again, uh, I mean, too early to tell and too uncertain. I mean, right now India is testing the bench strength, and yeah, I think only time will tell. And yeah, that's all I
All
can
right.
say
Okay,
right now.
Saurabh, why don't you tell us in the comment section, according to you, what is the combination? We'll find out from Professor Pratyek if he agrees with your combination. Let's change things around a little bit. And, talking about this particular match as well, I see a lot of questions, analysis as well. There's a particular comment that's coming from Sumit. I'll take that in a bit. But before we come to that comment, if you could take a look at what the player battle is to look forward to, definitely Siraj should be in the scheme of things. But who's against him? It is Hope. He has managed to score 28 runs, and Siraj has dismissed him on 3 occasions. So probably a player battle everybody would be looking forward to. Before we come to the playing 11, let me take this question quickly. With the fact that Sumit has said Arshdeep deserves to play ahead of Avesh, Professor Pratyek, आपका क्या कहना है इसके बारे में?
Well, see, it's a matter of personal choices because, as I said, that at the moment there are so many players, it's actually hard for you to pick anyone because Arshdeep brings you a different sort of a skill set. He's someone who brings that left arm element, and he's a very wily bowler. I mean, we've seen him doing at the IPL the death bowling skills that he has got. I remember it correctly. If his death bowling numbers in the IPL this year, economy wise, were only behind Jasprit Bumrah, and if you are being second to Jasprit Bumrah, you know that you are doing certain things very correctly because you know what the standard of Jasprit Bumrah is. So I think that he is another player that we have had in the reckoning. And like even Prateek said, that at the moment there are so many players who are vying for those spots that you have to, it's very hard for you to, kind of bottle it down to maybe 4 or 5 names because there are at least 8 to 10 bowlers that you perhaps have sitting in your ranks, and all of them have performed at different levels in different series at the IPL, some of the other series. As we even talk about the batting, I mean, take for instance the Deepak Hooda. I don't think anyone would have thought that he was in the reckoning at around 360 odd days ago. But suddenly you see that he is competing for a spot, perhaps putting a few worry lines on the heads of Surya Kumar Yadav, or maybe for those members who are a part of the middle order. Same is the case with the bowlers. I think if you see Avesh Khan is there, there's another set of people who want even Umran Malik. So if you are putting in those many players, it becomes very difficult for you to kind of just put it down to 4 or 5. And having seen what we saw in the previous World Cup, because in 2021 you remember that Yuzvendra Chahal surprisingly was axed. We saw what happened after that. Rahul Chahar being given the nod ahead of him. Varun Chakravarti, even for that matter, both of those have suddenly disappeared. None of those two players are to be seen at the moment. So there's so much happening in the Indian cricket at the moment that it's actually not easy to answer. I mean, there are no easy answers to that question. But to come to Sumit's question, I think that yes, Arshdeep is another player who is definitely one to watch out for. But as I said, that there are plenty of games on this tour, 5 T20Is to come up, another ODI left. So I think that you might as well see him playing in one of those games.
All right, so we hope Pratyay has done justice by answering that, but the problem of plenty will still remain. But it's a good thing to see that there is so much of talent. I was waiting for a question on Virat Kohli, and I do see that in my comments. But we'll try squeezing that in if we can. But before that, let's take a quick look at what both the teams are looking like, and we'll get a quick word from Prateek to find out what he thinks about this combination. Of course, we've spoken about Avesh Khan making his debut today. But दूसरी तरफ the combinations that they've gotten for Prateek looks like both of them are balanced.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, yeah, it is hard for Prasidh Krishna to lose out because he has been performing decently well. Of course, Avish Khan has been performing decently well as well, so it's good to get the nod. And rest of the team, I think it looks balanced for India. There's no reason for them to change too much after winning the first game. And for West Indies, then again, they haven't changed much. They came very close to winning, and I think, yeah, rightly so, they haven't changed a lot. Yeah, I think it overall looks balanced.
All right, balance is the word, but who is going to win? We will have to wait and watch. Before we wrap up, Vignesh has answered what he thinks that the combination would look like. Bhuvi, Bumrah, Shami, Chahal, Hardik, Jaddu, 6 bowlers, 50 overs. Hardik and Jaddu as the fifth bowler with 10 overs. And if one of those two have a good day and give 10 overs, it's a bonus. Before we sign off, Professor Pratyay, does this answer, get a 10 on 10? या कहीं आधा या एक मार्क आप कट करोगे?
It does. It does. I mean, it's a very safe choice that Vignesh has gone with. The first choice bowlers that he has kind of picked. And yes, at the moment, see, as I said, that once we get closer to the World Cup time, once we get closer to the spot selection, we would be in a better situation to assess what kind of form the player is in. But right now, if you're asking the kind of form that these players that Vignesh just named, all of them kind of just write their names on the sheet because they're experienced, because they've got the caliber, they are proven performers. So you would rather want to have them instead of, because in World Cups and in tournaments like these, you want experience over anything else. Yes, of course, there are certain players who will bring new sort of skill sets, but there's no actual real replacement of experience. So from that perspective, these are the players who will always be the easier choices. But as I said, that for us to judge here and give our combinations is very easy. When the boardroom selection, the meetings happen, then you just have to kind of feel for the selectors how difficult it is for anyone to be an India selector, because there's so much talent pool you have to choose only, because at the end of the day only 11 can play. I think it becomes very difficult, but I think that yes, it's a good problem to have. Not always unfortunately for India, they always have a problem of plenty. So kind of it has actually become a bad problem to have because there are so many names. And then in hindsight, you start to get so many realizations, like we are talking about Chahal and Chahal in the previous World Cup. But I think as we get closer to the matches, because there's plenty of cricket left, even before the World Cup, both the World Cups, in fact, for that matter. So I think current form and all of that, the fitness situations, all of that will also have to be taken into consideration. Keeping that in mind, we would be, of course, in a better situation to judge it closer to the World Cup.
All right. So if Prateek believes that the selectors are having a different, difficult choice to be making, then where does Virat Kohli stand in the placement in terms of T20 World Cup should probably be a different conversation altogether for the person who has messaged us here asking about King Kohli. We'll probably have a conversation about that some other day because we have run out of time on this edition of Crick Tracker Special Show in the Air. Want to thank our P Factor Prateek and Prateek for joining me in this and all of you as well for coming and giving us your interactive questions and answers as well. Hope you all enjoy the game. But until we see you next time, continue watching Cricket Tracker for the latest news in the world.